Welcome to this episode of Exploring the Humanities, Voices from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. Our podcasts allow us to showcase the exciting and innovative work being done by our colleagues in the humanities, intersecting with fields as varied as aviation, mental and physical health, virtual reality, design, neuroscience. I am Renia Lopez from the Faculty of Humanities. We are delighted to have with us today Professor Lily Ching, who is Yunshan Distinguished Scholar and Director of the Center for Social Cultural Theory and Foreign Language Education at the Guangdong University of Foreign Studies. So, Professor Ching, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome.
Thank you for your invitation. The honor is always mine. Thank you so much for your kindness of having me here. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what it is that you focus on, because your field is second language acquisition. So tell us a little bit more about the language you teach and your students.
I teach English as a foreign language at Guangdong University of Foreign Studies. And my students are mainly undergraduate teacher students who are studying how to teach English to schoolers or middle schoolers. And I'm also supervising master students and doctor students Center of Applied Linguistics. Yeah.
And as part of your work, I understand that you are also Associate Secretary of the China Association of Second Language Acquisition.
Yes.
What is the role of the association?
The association in China, or the full name is China Association of Second Language Acquisition, is very influential in China, I think, maybe around the world. There are many scholars like Professor James Lantoff, Professor Nasaji, Hossein Nasaji. As far as I know, there's so many have been invited to the annual conference we organized in the past 10 years, more than 10 years. The history of the association is almost 2 decades. The scholars are very influential figures in foreign language education and linguistic studies, especially in applied linguistics. As you might have heard, Professor like Xu Jinfen is the chair. Like for this year, we are going to have a conference for larger participants, like 400 or 600 participants or attendees.
Your approach to foreign language teaching is from the Vygotskian perspective of sociocultural theory. So tell us, who was Vygotsky and what is this sociocultural theory about? And as you're telling us, tell us also, how does Professor James Lantoff fit into this?
Let me firstly talk about Vygotsky and then somebody who is alive still, Professor James Lantoff. Vygotsky was a Russian psychologist and who argued that human cognition is first social and then individual. It's like two planes for their psychological development. One started with social interaction. And then after this, then you come to internalization of what you have learned in a social plane. So learning is mediated by cultural tools. By saying cultural tools, language is one of the most powerful mediator. Why did he choose language as a unit of analysis? Because outwardly, language is mediating your actions and the other persons around you as part of the social interactions. And inwardly is mediate your thinking. So a language is also the annex that connect your cognition and your behaviors and your thinking and your emotions.
And you were going to tell us also about Professor James Lantoff.
Yeah. Professor James Lantoff, he used to be the chair of Applied Linguistics of America, the AAAL, we call it. And I was working with him as a visiting scholar in Penn State University about 10 years ago. And ever since then, we have been working together and communicating very frequently online or in person. And he visited China 4 or 5 times over the years. He's the one who introduced us the very frontier studies of SLA under the framework of social culture theory. And he's the one who helped most of the Chinese scholars to understand what social culture theory is and why are we studying SLA from the lens of social culture theory rather than the other theories, and what are the advantages of working with it.
So, how popular are these theories in FL classrooms today in China?
I think we are moving from the niche research status of social culture theory. And at first, it was not quite familiar with Chinese scholars for sure. I mean, back in 10 years ago. But now we have been organizing conferences and workshops, especially for the last 3 years, 2023, 2024. We have organized 2 workshops and 5 or 6 conferences with our focus on social culture theory.
What about in the classroom? How many teachers are actually implementing the social cultural ideas, or rather integrating these ideas within the way they teach?
I'm not quite sure about how many, but these days when I'm sharing what I have been experimenting with or what I have been researching on with scholars from a different university who have invited me to do a talk or anything like that, I can see from their participation and their attention to my talk, instead of playing with their mobile phones, they're listening to me. That means they are getting more and more interested and they understand what I'm talking about.
So then, according to this perspective, what can we do to teach second languages more effectively? So thinking practical, what can we actually do as teachers?
From the lens of social culture theory, firstly, when we prepare for the classes, we will firstly diagnose the student's ZBD.
What is CBD?
The ZBD is zone of proximal development. The distance between what a learner can do independently and what they can do with the help from more capable peers or experts. So we would like to teach students within this zone so that if they give it a metaphor, you will like the student to jump a little bit to reach to the pitch rather than struggling to the pitch. But you don't really want them to pick up the piece too easy.
Okay, it sounds like a delicious objective. Okay, so you prepare this in advance, so I suppose you think about it and the capabilities of your students. Is there anything else that you can physically do once you're in the classroom?
Okay, you will like to provide contingent mediation like hints or models of dialogic feedback rather than static explanations. And you will also require the learners to externalize their thinking, or we can say languaging, through any kind of tasks so that they will interact with each other or collaborate with each other to reach a higher level.
Let me come back to the zone of proximal development, because there is another term which is scaffolding, and I think more people are familiar with scaffolding than zone of proximal development. And I fear that some people might confuse the two. So why this potential confusion?
The confusion began in the late 1970s when Courtney Kasdan and later Jeremy Bruner, working from English translations, equated Wood's metaphor of scaffolding with Vygotsky's ZBD. I think it started there. The mistranslation of the Russian term oblidelya is as a cause rather than a certain. So cause is what is caused by something. And certain is to distinguish or certain, like identify something, the differences. So made ZBD sound like a support structure to be removed. So it sounds more like a scaffold. But in ZBD, we would like to continuously provide mediation, not just to provide what they need, but to diagnose their current level, but also their future level. What is the potential level of that? So that means you would like to extend the ZBD A, ZBD B, ZBD C, so make it, so one scaffold is aiming to the present. What do you need now? But ZBD is aiming to your future. So what do you need for the future?
How can you integrate these ideas into the language classroom? Because I'm just thinking, if you have 25, 30, 35 students in the classroom, this sounds to me as if it requires quite a lot of independent attention. So knowing each student and their needs. How do you do that?
To give you an example, the research I've just finished and got published in System recently, it is a writing class. Usually for the continuation task, writing, or we say in Chinese, we say 序, that's the post-reading continuation writing if you translate literally. But it's a kind of task that you give the students a pre-story, and then you ask the student to write what will happen next. The word limit is 120 words for high schoolers. But when I'm teaching these students as sophomores, so I think 120 is too small piece. So I increase it to 250, which is pretty much a little bit higher than Band 4, or we can say college English test in China. It's a national English test for all college students or students from universities. They have Band 4 and Band 6. It's just between Band 4 and Band 6. So that is the kind of teaching within the ZBD. That means if they complete the test by themselves independently, there will be problems, of course. But we introduced AI to help them first. So the help will be individualized first. And then we provide teacher feedback to help them improve. And that is the kind of, you have the ZPD, you're teaching within the ZPD, and you provide mediation either with technology or with you yourself.
So in this study that you have just mentioned, you said that you were using AI to assist EFL learners to do the writing. Overall, what was the response of the students? How did they respond to the use of AI as an assistant?
Yeah, to be honest, some of the students are not quite familiar. Were not quite familiar with AI, and they heard about it, and they sort of knew what to do with it. Like mostly cut and paste, and then copy and paste back to their papers, to their file, to a document. However, then we figure out it's a kind of waste of AI tool as a adapt native speaker, even though it's artificial. So we did some interviews to the students and asked, what were you doing with AI and how did you do with it? And unfortunately, they did not know what to do with it to help them improve their writing skills. The most serious issues are how to prompt. And then we had the lesson on specifically training them how to write prompts. And that helped a lot. And from the interview, by the end of the term, a lot of students mentioned about that class. So that means students need more mediation in how to use AI.
So I take it the comments about the class were positive comments. They appreciated the help.
They appreciate the help. And however, you were asking about their responses. And even though they know how to prompt and how to improve their writing with the AI, but their focus are different. They're so different. And it's not only on word choice and syntax, but also on content and many other issues. And different problems emerged according to what we have recorded on the screen with Translog 2.
How did the students use AI in this specific exercise?
I think at the very beginning, according to their behavior, but we did not analyze this part, but according to their behavior features, at the very beginning, I think they did a lot on cutting the whole paragraph or the whole piece of writing and paste it into AI. Then later on, it turned out to be like picking up the sentences and put it into the AI to refine it. And at the end, after they've refined every sentences, and they will refine the whole piece so that logically there will be something improved. So that means they're not only working with words or linguistic units, they are working with the whole piece. But if you're asking the student to write on their own, most of the cases are they pay too much attention to wording or vocabulary or semantics or something. And they might pick up some keywords from the pre-story, but it's not enough. The other issue is how they keep on track with the storyline. Many of the cases are they don't know how to conclude because their imagination is too diffused. It's difficult for them to close up. And then I used another technique that is concept-based instruction, or later on we call it concept-based language instruction to distinguish it with content-based instruction. I give them a SCOBA to tell them how to keep on track when you narrate a story. So that helped a lot too. So that means it's not just AI that is helpful. You need to tell them how to use AI. And another thing is you need to tell them cognitively to understand what is narrative.
So that is the students. What about other teachers? How do teachers overall respond to AI challenges, or at least the ones that you work with? And what are they doing to motivate students to effectively use technology in language learning?
Let me start with technology first. It's not just AI, because AI only came into existence about 1.5 years ago, 3 years ago. No, I mean, in China, I think Chinese EFL foreign language teachers started to get familiar with AI because of DeepSeek. That's big news in China. I think it's the end of last year,
Yeah, that was
2024.
Quite recently, yes.
Yeah, but I guess for international scholars or in the Western world, AI is pretty much earlier, 2 years earlier than that. We have ChatGPT, but we have limited access to ChatGPT. We know what it is, but probably not that many teachers will be able to have access to use it. So that means it's difficult for them to integrate it in their classrooms. But with DeepSeek, because it's local and domestic, so we have very easy access to it, and teachers started to use. However, according to my research that happened last term, I think during winter holiday, I interviewed about 54 to 60 teachers working in universities. I don't think they do understand what AI really is about and what are the functions and how can AI help them. They have very general ideas of help them prompt some feedbacks, reviewing those writing tasks. And they also know how to use it but very few teachers know how to design tests with AI or to write some interesting tasks, to design some interesting tasks when they prepare for the classes. But they are aware of the technological obstacles. I mean, they mentioned about practice of communicate support from their institutional management and some peers. But most of the students are puzzled and they're not quite, they feel like they can't help. They can't seek help. It's difficult for them to seek help from the community around them. And there are also some others who are resistant of using AI. claiming that even though without it we can do a very good language education of things. And some were trained by some kind of workshops, but they were complaining it's too advanced. We didn't actually understand much. We were not interested in researching with AI-assisted language teaching. We're interested in teaching with AI. So that means the support they are getting are not within their ZVD. So they are having a kind of a technophobia, I guess. But because later on, I think nowadays in China, the Bureau of Education are releasing some documents or policies advocating AI use. I guess nowadays they're obliged to use AI.
What about a school level? Are schools implementing AI overall, or is it still very much some of them are, some aren't?
I think the schools are advocating AI use as well. They're opening some projects, application to everyone within the campus. Among the staff to, if you're interested, then you can apply for the funding for this AI plus certain course project to build up a course, AI assisted course, like what I'm doing now.
So there are basically a lot of opportunities at the moment open to not only second language teachers, but all teachers at all levels to try and integrate AI into their classes.
Yeah, if you're interested now, because not that many scholars or teachers are so keen on working out a total new course with AI tools that is suitable for an 18-week term. It's hard work. It's like building up a new MOOC, only that you have to work with your laptop rather than in the video room like this, recording room like this. But it is still a lot of work. You have to learn new technologies and things like that. But you can get some funding.
So good to hear. And for anyone out there who is looking for a research project, here you have excellent opportunities.
Thank you.
And you had mentioned before something else I wanted to pick up on, and that is the importance of concepts and conceptualizing ideas. So this is actually quite close to my own research. So tell us more about this and concept-based language.
Thank you for the question. That is something I really want to talk about. So how to implement concept-based instruction is usually quite challenging for teachers, not only for students, but also for teachers. The concepts are like the model verb I wrote in the Modern Language Journal paper. It's a series of concepts, firstly. It's not just one concept. And it is not regarding one thing. It's about a whole system of concepts. And the differences between the concepts and the language units you're teaching. So why don't you teach can or could or may separately? Why are you teaching can, could, may, and the other modal verbs altogether 12 in concept instruction? That is because most of the cases, if you teach one by one, that is learned by drills or rules of thumb are the things that students can remember. But you don't really understand why it is called modal verb. What is special about modal verb? What are the differences between the 12 modal verbs? What are the similarities between? What are they used for? So that is the concept of the whole thing. Another thing is we have to understand there are two concepts. One is everyday concept. The other one is scientific concept. Everyday concept is the one that you pick up by your personal everyday life or everyday experience. Scientific concept can only be learned by formal education. Like some kids from southern part of China, they don't really understand what is winter. But you have been taught by school that is what is winter, what is autumn, what is spring, and what is summer. Over here, I guess the kids only know what is summer because it's too hot. So that's the differences between scientific concept and everyday concept. So to teach students with concept-based instruction, that means to asked us to give the student the proper mediation about the scientific concept, firstly by verbalizing. But later on, you ask the student to visualize the concept, that is to draw a diagram that is called scoba to represent that concept. And then the student will language the concept, or we say the languaging, or either by verbal or writing. Why do we need the verbalizing part or languaging part? That is, even though you can draw it, you think you understand. That is the mystery of language. But if you're asked to explain to others what it is, you might have difficulties. But as long as you can explain to others what it is, that means you understand, you have internalized it. That is the concept or the philosophy of concept instruction. That's why we're using it.
You had mentioned earlier that this was part of a study that you got published recently.
Mm-hmm.
What was the outcome of the study? Was the study successful? Did the students really learn better? Did they learn faster?
Yeah, so actually, for concept-based instruction, it's called systemic theory instruction by Galbraith. And it has been tested not only in English education, but also with many other subjects. It's in about more than 800 classrooms. It has been tested. And nowadays, I think there are about 200 to 400 published references in the list, in the bibliography that I have organized. The outcome of my research is many previous studies only focus on either languaging or scoba building. So they have their own coding scheme of analyzing these data. However, I'm thinking, no, for concept instruction, that is the whole system. It's a holistic system. You start with concept explanation by the teachers. Then you provide teacher scoba. Then you ask the student to build their own scoba. Then you ask the student to language the concept. And then you decide whether they have internalized the concept or not. So that's a whole system. Why are we separating it? So my research integrates all of this processes or phases into one study. So that is one innovation of it. Another thing is we design some coding schemes, not only for scoba, but to connect scoba with languaging, oral languaging and written languaging. So because it's the process, the whole process of internalization, you can't separate it. So we describe the whole process. That is another innovation. And the final result turned out that higher level English learners feel more comfortable with concept instruction. And the lower level learners are more struggling with it. However, the gains of their English test for lower level learners are more significant. So they feel they were struggling, but actually they gained more. But higher level learners, I guess, they have smaller gaps in achievement. So that's understandable. But their scopes are more abstract and systemic. But for lower level learners, their scopes are discrete and concrete. So that is what we have found out, basically.
I hope this is part of the training that your students are getting, so they'll be able to implement this in the classroom as well. It certainly sounds like a good strategy to be using. Just one final question. What are you working on now?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked. At the moment, I think AI is part of my national project funding, as funded project. So I have targets to complete. So I have to work with AI. I know you're not quite agree with me of integrating AI into the classroom too much.
On the contrary, I think we need to integrate it and to ensure that our students come out being AI experts.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm glad that you say so. Well, recently I'm trying to work with AI to try to refine all of the didactics under the framework of social culture theory. For example, I'm working with one of my students on AI-assisted concept-based instruction. And I'm also working with another student on AI-assisted dynamic assessment. And at the moment, very recently for this year, I've been working with AI-assisted language teaching and AI-assisted teacher development, like that. So I hope in future I will focus more on classroom-based AI research, because that's the key for the future education, right?
I agree. I think that is the future, indeed. And certainly the way that we train new teachers has to include AI for them to be able to use it in their teaching. Yes. Do you have any final words for our audience?
I think AI is the renaissance of recent world, especially rebirth of traditional thinking into a totally brand new world aiming to the future. I hope we need to open our arms welcoming it, but at the same time, of course, we need to be cautious if we are planning to integrate it into the classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Lily Ching. We hope to see you again soon.
Thank you for the talk.
Thank you for joining us on Exploring the Humanities from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. For more episodes or information, visit our website or follow us on Spotify. Stay tuned for discussions with leading voices from the Faculty of Humanities and beyond.